Alright, so today's video is on narcissism and what narcissist people look for in you. So there's many things that narcissistic people will look for in you in order to satisfy themselves. And the main key in what I'm saying is in order to satisfy themselves. Narcissists only look to satisfy themselves. On the exterior, they make you think and they make you feel that they care about you, that they're looking out for you, that they might be trying to do things for you. But internally, they don't really care about anything else that doesn't have anything to do with themselves. You see, narcissistic people are very selfish, and they try to put on this act like they care about you, like they care about the people around them. And they do this because of the reason being, they want validation, they want approval, and they are very confident people, but only usually because of the approval and validation that you give them or that other people give them. You see, narcissistic people, they usually do have some level of superiority in work, at home. Usually narcissistic people, they're able to get to very high levels because of their narcissistic tendencies, because of how they're able to control others, and because of how they're able to kind of push through when a lot of empathetic people sometimes aren't able to. So what do they look for? They look for your validation. They look for things like being able to control you. They look for your emotions, your vulnerability, and they look for your reactions. Now, these are the things that are very hard to let go of, especially if you figured out that the person that is a narcissist and you don't like it. You don't like being able to, you don't like having to maybe live with it, or you don't like having to deal with it in your environment, so you want to change it. That is the one thing you can't do. You cannot change a narcissistic person. You cannot change how they are. And unfortunately, there is no pill or solution to changing how they are or what they're doing or how they're being. The only thing that you can do is change yourself. So when you're looking to change a narcissistic person or change how a person is being, you have to remember that the only thing that you can very physically or very, in the now change is how you are or how you're being. You can't change this person. This person is this way for a reason. And usually those reasons are trauma-based. Usually those reasons are based in things that they were not able to get. And that is another thing that they look for. They look for your validation. They look for people who are kind. They look for people who are good and kind-hearted, because they want to take advantage of those people and get that approval and that appreciation from them. A narcissistic person is not going to go to another narcissistic person and ask for their validation because they know that they're not going to give it. You see, one common trend that narcissistic people have is that they can't flip the coin. They can't give that approval to other people unless it means that it's going to validate them, or unless it means that it's going to, aid them in some ways. They cannot flip the coin. They cannot flip the perspective. They cannot give you validation unless it benefits them. They can't give you approval unless it benefits them. They can't give you much of anything unless it's going to benefit them in the end. What helps a narcissistic person is your supply. Now, you may be thinking, what is my supply? So the supply and the tools that you give them to keep giving them energy, to keep fueling their energy. Now, what fuels their energy? What do they look for? What fuels their energy is your vulnerability, your emotions, and your reactions to them. This is one of those things that's very difficult to not do, especially because it's probably what you've been doing for your whole life towards this person, or for however long that you've been experiencing dealing with this person. It's hard to hold in our emotions and our reactions, especially when we know that usually narcissistic people will hoover, they'll gaslight, and they'll try to make you feel and think that you're doing something wrong, even when you know you're not. So what does that do? That makes you want to react. That makes you want to usually emotionally respond to them. And it's not an easy thing to do because you know that you're not wrong. You know that what you're saying or doing isn't bad or isn't in a bad light, It's very hard because you want that person to understand your perspective. You want this person to understand your point of view. You want this person to be able to get how you're feeling. And one thing that they can't do is that they can't get how you're feeling. They can't sympathize or empathize with anybody who isn't doing that for themselves. And even for the people that do it for them, they just take that as fuel and energy for themselves, and they carry on with their lives. And then as soon as you need it, it's harder for them to do for you, or it's something that they don't want to do. Narcissistic people look for people that they can control. They look for people that they can take advantage of, and they look for people that are going to validate them, approve of them, and give them benefits to their own lives. But they don't care about you. They don't care about how you feel. They don't care about what you're doing. And that's one thing that the one thing that I think that I could give you and provide you to help you with dealing with a narcissistic person is you don't want to overshare. You don't want to overshare what you're doing. Now, I know this might be hard if your narcissistic person in your life is a friend or a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a family member. You want to share things that make you happy to these people. But the thing is, it's what makes you happy, not what makes them happy. What makes them happy is getting those beneficial things that only help them. So if you overshare, you can't expect them to not use that against you at some point. You can't expect them to not give you the response that you want, because they do not care. They don't want to empathize with you. They don't want to sympathize with you. And sometimes to gain gain control of you back, sometimes to gain validation of you back, they will falsely validate you or falsely make you feel like, you're doing something right or that you're doing something good, just so that they could twist it and turn it right back on you. So if they're doing something to you, or, if a narcissistic person is giving you something that is not true, if they're saying that you're doing something, for example, and you're not doing it, don't give them that reaction. If the narcissistic person is trying to explain themselves and say that, they're doing something that's right, you just have to stay silent. Look at them, no facial reactions, no reactions whatsoever. You just have to allow it to happen and move on. They're always going to think that they're right. They're always going to think that everything that they're saying is right. And they know even when it's not right, they can't come to terms with that. They can't accept when they're wrong. They can't accept when they're doing something that isn't right. So what you have to do is you have to remember that you can't give them the things that they're looking for. You cannot give them validation. You cannot give them approval. You cannot overshare things that you're doing in your life that make you happy, because they're going to twist it and they're going to make you feel like what you're doing is wrong, or like what you're doing isn't a good thing. You cannot overshare. You cannot approve of them. And the one thing that you have to do is everything that you've ever wanted out of that narcissistic person. Maybe it's love. Maybe it's validation. Maybe it is validation. Maybe it's support. Maybe it's a close friend. All of those things that you want out of this narcissistic person, you need to start providing and looking inward and start giving to yourself. Because the thing with this is, what they look for is what you're also looking for. They look for that external approval. They look for things on the exterior environment. And what you need to do is, instead of giving them that and giving them that external validation, instead of giving them what they want, you need to give what they want to yourself. You need to give yourself that validation. You need to give yourself that approval. You need to give yourself all those things. So instead of looking in the external environment, you need to start looking in your internal being. You need to start looking within yourself for the things that you want out of this person. They look for these things in you. So the things that they look for in you are things that you not only aren't going to give them anymore, but these things are things that you need to start giving to yourself, which is things that you've been looking for in this person or looking for in these people probably for a really long time, or maybe your whole life. It's not fair to you, and you need to start being your own best friend. You need to start being that person to lean on. You need to start being that person that understands you. You need to start being that person that cares the way that you want this person to care. Because at the end of the day, it sucks and it hurts and it's painful. But what you need to sit with is that this person does not care about you. They care about themselves. This person does not care if they're being selfish, because selfishness means that they get benefited in the end. Selfishness means that they get the approval that they want in the end. Selfishness and caring for themselves means that they don't get hurt in the end. And at the end of the day, they are people, so they don't want to be hurt. So they're going to do everything in their power to flip it on you, to hurt you, so that they don't hurt themselves. They look for these things, so don't give it to them. Swill Armani.